All right, welcome. What's today? The November 18. We're going to go over cleaning up, finishing up, getting close to have completed, and let you complete the rest of the program of our Eclipse project, where we are running a game. A quiz game, a rewrite of the quiz game. I'm going to fire up my version, and before I even show you my code, I'm going to let you see it run and see what I have so far. And you can critique, tell me what is missing. So let's run it. I'm going to run it within the window, so I'm going to reduce the size so it fits in my recording window here. All right, here we go. Running the program. First thing I'll do when I get your program is, does it run? If it runs, at least you've got a working program. So comment out broken code if you're just stuck on it when you deliver something. Now let's just see. What's wrong with this right now? What's yet to be finished?
The player.
Yeah, we're not indicating who player it is. So that's right now left at the default. Let's see is it reading the file, the questions from the file?
Yeah, but I think it's not shuffling them.
Right, it's not shuffling the questions yet. So you are correct there. So Phil Boom is present. It's not showing the score, and we really don't want to show the score until the end anyway. But if you want to show the score as a debug part, here's a little debug message popping up in my console. I'm telling what button got clicked, because that's our problem today. I want to help you with is how do I know what button was clicked if I'm using the same event handler for all the buttons? I need to know which button was clicked. Well, I'll show you what to do with that. So, name of the dorm above the dining hall, that would be Tatham. And yes, that was button 3 that got clicked. And what's the name of the gymnasium building? Paul Fewhouse. Oh, and I see it knows what button is being clicked. And what's the name of the auditorium? David A. Glock. And, oh look, I do actually know when the game is over. I had 4 questions. I'm not displaying which player it is, though, so I've got a problem there. I need to be displaying which player number it is. And I think for the different players, I'd like to have a different color of background so it's really clear who the player number is, or maybe blink it, or something that the player number knows. It's not me anymore. Now, what should I do with game over?
Maybe display the score.
Display the score. I could do a pop-up, or I could display the score here. And then at some choice, you want to play again, probably.
Yeah.
And help right now, I don't think my help is doing anything. But that's not as critical as being able to play the game correctly and display who the player is. So we're getting closer to a completed game. But let's see the code that got me this far, that actually answers the question. Notice it's still telling me, it's still answering the button handler. Even though it's game over, it's not doing anything anymore because I know I'm at the end of the question. So there is a little checking to see, even with when a button gets clicked, I'm probably actually updating the score, even though I should be game over and shouldn't be even updating the score.
Yeah, what I did for the original version of this, when the game was over, I just had all of the buttons disappear.
Yeah. So you can decide what you want to do game over. You could disable them, you could have them disappear, and then have the only button they can push is either quit or play again or something.
And help.
Yeah, and help should always be there. Okay, so let's see what we got, how we got this code working, and I'll walk through what happened. And the second time through here, I can probably clean up the code even while I review my own code. So I'm closing the game, and now let's take a look at where we actually established. Let's review how in the world we got that event handler of the button. Let's review carefully. Go way up where we created the buttons, right up here. Here we created our buttons. And as I created them, remember before I created any buttons, I added this code myself. One listener to rule them all, and one listener to find them. How's it go? One listener.
One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them.
One ring
to
bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Yes. So we have this one.
I know that by heart.
So we have this one button action that we made this to be an answer button listener. Now let's look at the definition of answer button listener, and then we'll come back to this mnemonic thing. The action button listener was way, yep.
Can you go back to the button listener?
So I created an answer button. I have defined answer button listener, which is a class I defined down below, inside of this class. It's only known inside of this class, and his name, his variable name, is btn action. He's a new answer button listener. Let's go to see the definition of an answer button listener by zipping down there. Right here. Here's what an answer button listener does. And there's some extra code here since the last time you saw it, because this is the part that I worked on to get that game to work. Let's walk through it. I showed you this last time, that since I'm handling many buttons are mapped to this button listener, I know that I have a button. I can do the e.getSource, and I'll put a little comment here. Well, I already have a comment. Get handler to the object that sent the event. Now, I am assuming here, assuming a button is what got clicked. Because e.getSource returns a generic object. And I'm saying, whatever got clicked, I'm going to treat it as a button. I'm doing a typecast. I'm saying, I'm sure that a button was what got clicked. I want btn to be the handle to that button. And I know if I've done the code right, the get source is actually, in reality, a button was clicked. So I am assuming here that I'm assigning that button handler to only buttons way up at the top in my code up here. And because I wrote this code, I can control that. Right there. I know that here's where I add the action handler listener, action listener to every button. Button action is the handler, and every button, button answer 1, button answer 2, they're all answering the same action listener. Okay, back to our listener. Back to here. What do we do? After I get my button, I need to know which button got clicked. And this is the part I wasn't sure what to do about this. So here's what I did. Let's go to the actual designer. And notice here, double click on the tab. In the Project Explorer, I went to my main quiz GUI, and notice I don't have the little designer tab on here. What do I do? This is something easily confused. I want to see that little designer tab. Why isn't it here? Well, watch this. I close this, and I right-click on main quiz GUI and do a open with, and make sure I'm opening it with the window builder editor. Sometimes, for some odd reason, it decides, oh, I don't need the window builder editor. I'll open it with a regular text editor because I just see Java text there. Well, if you don't open it with the window builder editor, you won't get the little designer guy to pop up. Let's go to design. And remember, if I have any errors, the designer will crash. If I have any C errors, it can't parse and view what this is supposed to look like. Now, here is the designer.
Yeah, why does mine take so much longer than yours?
I do not know why Williams takes longer.
Okay.
The only reason, one thing I could do is actually try to open it on a different machine. Like send it here, and I'll open it here. If it opens quick here, then we know it's some issue with that computer's configuration.
What version are you using?
Of Eclipse?
Yeah.
Let's check. I am using 19.9, I believe.
Ah, I'm using 19.6. So.
And that may not be the difference. We'd have to actually see that. Because I have 19.6 here. I could open it and see if it opened faster here. There may be an issue with 19.6.
Yeah, well, at least it's not completely code breaking.
Right. And that is one of the prices you pay. With an IDE, you get a lot of features, but you get that complexity coming in here and there about why so slow here and fast on another place. Other things, just the complexity of what's going on with all those properties. In this place, the properties are actually helpful to us. I click on these buttons, and I was trying to figure out how in the world am I going to know what button got clicked. And one reason I'm doing it this way is because when I was doing a calculator. Did you do a calculator in your VB examples? Did you build a basic little calculator?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That was a long time.
Well, if I'm doing a calculator and I have the number on the button, I can just get the text from the button to know which button got pressed for a calculator. So when I have a calculator that's handing, when I press any of the buttons, add it to what's being displayed up in the number holder display label, that's where a single event handler is great. I just know what button got clicked. Oh, it was number 1. I add that text to the top number being calculated. And then when you do divide times equal, I do something different. But for any button with a number, it's just what number is on the face of the button determines what gets displayed in the text. Well, in our case, we have different questions that are being displayed on the button. So I can't just put a number on the button. I suppose I could put the first character to be a number, and then I could just say, well, let's read the first character of what's in the text of the button, get text, and that would be a way for me to know which button was clicked. I decided to try something different. Since I was looking at the various properties of a button, I saw this little field called mnemonic. And VB, if you actually look at buttons, I think they have a little thing just called extra. It's up to you to put them there. But here under Java, I thought, well, I'm not using this thing called mnemonic. It needs to be a char. Oh, look at that. It says this is now obsolete. Set mnemonic. Well,
Yeah,
I don't care about that.
That's what I found when I was researching stuff. Set mnemonic.
Yeah. All I care about is that what's in this mnemonic is to help me know what button got clicked. So I thought, well, let's try this. Let's put a 1 on that button. In the mnemonic there's a 2. The third button is the mnemonic is 3, and the fourth button the mnemonic is 4. Then I did a little research, and I discovered that I can read what's in the mnemonic by doing btn.get mnemonic. And the quickest way to research that was I just did btn dot, and I look at what's available, and it's probably a get, and let's see what's available in get, and I just searched through that, and I found get mnemonic right there. Clicked on it, and it gives me very little help. But I thought, well, let's just try. I see that it returns an integer, so maybe that would return the 1, 2, 3, or 4 that I typed. So I tried that, and here's the debug message. I printed, oh, get mnemonic, put it in the integer imn that I've defined here, and print it out. And lo and behold, I was finding when I clicked the one that had mnemonic 1 there, I got a number 49 when I did my debug messages. And when I clicked 2, I got 50 and 51 and 52. So I realized, if I analyzed the number, that I was getting the ASCII value of the character that was there. Well, knowing the ASCII table, having memorized that in high school in the geeky club that we had, well, I didn't memorize it, but I knew capital A began around 40 or something like that, hex. Well, 49, I realized, well, if I'm returning 49 from a 1, well, then just add this. Subtract 48 from the mnemonic, and that'll get 1 for the first button, 2 for the second button. And that will tell me what button got clicked. So here was, by trial and error, first try and get mnemonic, seeing that when a 1 was there, I got a 49, and a 2 was there, I got 50. I know that, okay, if I want IMN to represent the button that was clicked, subtract 44 from get mnemonic, done. Now, IMN, whatever button got clicked, IMN now is the button that was being clicked.
Why minus 48?
Because I discovered that 1 gave me 49. And 2 gives me 50, 3 gives me 51, and 4 gives me 52. So if I want to just have this represent, well, what's the number of my button that got clicked? All I have to remember is, over in design, I just set the mnemonic to be 4321. And I didn't see anything else that was as useful, except, I could say, well, let's put the number of the button in the text. I could do a get text. This tooltip, I thought, well, maybe I could put the number in the tooltip, and there's probably a way to read what's in the tooltip text. And if I needed something longer, that's probably what I would try, that the tooltip text can hold some other information. I don't see a place to hold like a holder of something extra associated with my button, which they do have in Visual Basic. Next time you look at buttons in Visual Basic, take a look at that one little extra property in the VB button. It's kind of handy sometimes. I think about any object in VB, I think has this little thing called extra. Okay, so back to the code. Now that I know I can get the number of my button, back in the code here, now that I know what button was pressed, and I can comment out that system out debug eventually, now I want to update the score based on whether or not they click the correct answer. So I'm keeping a global variable of what is my current question being displayed. I throw that in a global variable, and we'll take a look at the top here. That was declared way up at the top. There it is. Where is it? There. Question current. And after I've read the quiz, I set the question current to be, guess what? Question 0 in the array list. So question current is declared there. After I've read the quiz, right here in my quiz create, where I read all the answers from my quiz, read from file, and the quiz create, there I call quiz create, and I say, oh, by the way, let's display the first question, set my question number, global variable, to be 0. My current question is, well, let's get that current question out of my quiz array list, and let's display that question using question display. So this is basically the start of the game, set up to point to the first question. I probably should have done like set the scores to 0 here too, but we'll ignore that for now.
What, are you in a method, or are you like in the main?
This is the main. The last thing I do after creating all the buttons was, let's do the quiz create, and right now quiz create does both. It built the quiz by hard-coded, and then I said at the end, well, the alternative is read the quiz from the file. I rebuilt it from this. So this code is actually replaced once I decided I want to read from the file now. So I could probably delete that code for now, because I know that this actually is what's getting all my questions. And the reason and the way I can tell this works is because I see the fill boom question as first, none of all these that I've actually created when in the first version.
Yeah, I have another copy.
Okay.
What was that? Your current question? What my quiz did? Question.
Yep. Now, really, I don't really need to keep track of quiz current as long as I know I have the my quiz and what question I'm on. I could always just say, well, what's the question I'm on? Well, I do a myquiz.get and I put a question num. So I actually have an unnecessary global variable, but it works. So I'll clean that code up later. But right now, it's basically I have a global variable, what question number I'm on, global variable of what the current quiz question is, and then this just means, well, get ready to play the game. Start with the first question. So first question will be displayed after all the buttons have been created. I've read my quiz in to the my quiz array list. This displays the first question. So this essentially just prepares the game to be played. Now, when I click a button, that's where all the important code happens. And I only have to do it in one place. You ready to go check that? Review that? We've already looked at it. You got this part? Okay. So now back to that button event handler. Way down here, the button answer, the button listener. Here's where I figured out what button got clicked. This is update the score based on what was the correct, whether or not I matched the correct answer. So IMN is what button got clicked. Quiz question current.getCorrectNum is, well, what's the correct button? And look at this handy little piece of code. Based on whoever the current player is, I simply increment their score because I'm keeping the scores in an array.
Can you scroll up like one line? I want to make sure that like I have my public like override in public void action perform in that class. I want to make sure that's right.
Yep.
Okay, it is. Okay.
Now this override thing, this just makes sure that access checks that I actually have the correct override. This, if you commented it out, you wouldn't get an error. I call this a safety feature. This makes sure that I have properly written the action performed. Watch what would happen if I don't have that commented and I say, oh, I'm going to have an action performed that takes a string as a second variable. I'll call it string A. It doesn't complain, but if I do an override, have that in there, they'll say, ho, 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 wait a minute. You said you were going to override. You don't have the right action performed. Action performed only takes a action event. So override makes sure that I write that action performed method exactly correct, according to what action listener is expecting to be there. So implements action listener means I am planning to have the same methods as any other action listener. Override says, let's make sure I do it right. If I don't have override in there, I can write bad code and not realize it's broken, and I'll get crazy red everywhere when I run my program. So it's good if you don't already have one. When I let Eclipse add the action listeners, it put that in for me. But that's what that means, is check to make sure I'm doing the correct override.
Where did you define scores?
Oh, where should scores be defined? Where would you expect them to be defined?
Global at the top.
Very good. Let's check. Way to the top, and there it is. I said I'm going to keep track of the number of players as 2. I'm going to make scores be an array of integers matching the same number of players. This is legal code because number of players has a value when I get to the next line. Java knows, okay, you've just given 2 to number of players. I will make that number room in the scores integer array. And arrays are always initialized to 0, so I don't have to go through an initialization. Nice feature of Java arrays. So score starts out as 0, 0, or however many players I have. I have not yet put in the code to change my player number. That's the thing you're going to help me with today. You good so far? Now we could do a split and actually see this, but I'm just going to zip back down to here now and walk through now.
Stuff on like your action listener thing, because
right
down here, when I click the button, it's not showing out here, even though I have a system out brand, so it's not actually.
Oh, let me help you. I'm guessing.